Today, we're thrilled to introduce The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey in audio format, exclusively on Mindful Audio Library. This audiobook offers a step-by-step plan for achieving financial fitness and security, emphasizing the importance of changing one's behavior and mindset towards money. Join us on this transformative journey to financial empowerment. Subscribe to Mindful Audio Library and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's embark on this enriching audiobook experience together. Introduction. Read the stories of the lives changed by this book. As a matter of fact, I recommend you skip through the book reading all the stories first. They will inspire you to read all the way through and actually do the proven plan to financial fitness. Many years ago I was given a calling to show people the truth about debt and money and to give them the hope and tools necessary to set themselves free financially. First, I did that with a few speaking engagements and a small self-published book titled Financial Peace. Later, Financial Peace was published by a New York publisher and became our first New York Times bestseller. I began doing a small local radio show that has now grown to more than 450 stations and millions of listeners that tune in weekly. We started teaching a 13-week class called Financial Peace University, which has had over 1 million families attend. Then came the Total Money Makeover. I am positive that personal finance is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge. Our concentration on behavior, realizing that most folks have a good idea of what to do with money but not how to do it, has led us to a different view of personal finance. Most financial people make the mistake of trying to show you the numbers, thinking that you just don't get the math. I am sure that the problem with my money is the guy in my mirror. If he will behave, he can make the money thing work. The math of wealth building is not rocket science, it is simple, but you have to do it. So the proven Total Money Makeover plan I teach has become very successful not because I have found the secrets of the rich. Not because I had some revelation that no one else has ever had about credit cards. Not because I am the only one with a debt snowball plan. Instead, this proven plan is having a national impact because I have realized that to change your money thing, you have to change. You have to change your life. When you change your life, you will get out of debt, give, and invest at an unbelievable rate. When you read the stories in this book, you will read not about mathematics or magic systems, but about changed lives. You will read about transformed marriages and relationships. Because when you change your life, you really change your life. So when Mike Hyatt, the president and CEO of Thomas Nelson Publishers, brought me the concept for a Total Money Makeover book, I became very excited. I became excited because I knew this book would inspire readers to take immediate action through a simple, step-by-step process that could only lead to life-changing results. Hope, the light at the end of the tunnel, that is, not an oncoming train, is a very powerful force. The Total Money Makeover has given hope to hundreds of thousands of families. This book has given them hope to win, and that hope has caused them to take action and claim ultimate victory over their financial struggles and worries, and to actually win. The number of people that I meet across this nation who tell me this is the first book of any kind they have read in 10 years is staggering. The Total Money Makeover is a book for everyone. It is for high-income earners, as I am. And it is for someone beginning at the bottom, which is where I once was. You are about to read about a process, a proven plan, to win. You will find the plan to be very simple yet very inspiring. The principles are not mine. I stole them all from God and your grandmother. The principles are common sense, which isn't so common anymore. The plan is mine, and I'm no genius, created by simply observing literally millions of lives with whom I have interacted through radio, TV, books, classes, the internet, email, podcasts, and our live events. I have successfully bottled common sense about money into a plan that anyone can do. And millions are. A couple of decades ago, when I first started talking about these principles, I knew they had helped my wife, Sharon, and me survive going broke and begin to prosper. The first 100 times I spoke on money, I wasn't as confident of the principles as I am now. Nowadays I look into the eyes of a gazillion people who have followed this plan and experienced, as we did, excitement, hope, and gratitude. I am so thankful that I have not only given them a proven plan, but have also inspired them to change their family tree. I am so confident in the Total Money Makeover principles and this process that I cannot stand it when someone doesn't get it. Because I am so convinced my plan will work for everyone, my answers to the same questions will never change. By recognizing and identifying some basic truths and everyday common sense, I have convinced millions of people to change their lives, to have a total money makeover. Are you next? What this book is not. I know it may be hard for you to believe, but I get a lot of hate mail and criticism. This book and what I have or have not said in it has generated a lot of negativity and name-calling. That is fun. Not fun because I set out to offend or because I love reading the nasty things people often say. It is fun because the negativity means two things. One, for some people we are touching a nerve that needs to be touched in order for them to change their lives, and two, I am actively and passionately pursuing the truth. Aristotle once said, to avoid criticism say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. I can't help millions of people change their lives by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. So I take the anger, the criticism, and even the hate mail as encouragement. My publisher suggested I answer my critics. I will pass. My grandmother used to say, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. However, I do not want you, dear reader, to be misled. So it is appropriate that I tell you what this book is not. That way you can decide whether or not to spend your hard-earned money on it. This book is not sophisticated or complicated. If you are looking for a detailed, in-depth guide to investing, you have not found it. If you are looking for boring academic chirping that will put you to sleep using words only to support the author's ego, you have not found it. What I have discovered is that some of the most profound and life-changing truths you will ever discover are very simple. In our culture, we worship the complicated and the sophisticated. If you know how to work your DVD player, you may not have a good one. In the financial world we have been taught to be arrogant snobs. Some believe that simple ideas are not profound, that instead, simple ideas are for the little people. That is a false and arrogant notion. I have met with thousands of millionaires, and in almost every case they keep their investing and money philosophies very uncomplicated. Just this week I was discussing investing and business structure with a friend of mine whose net worth is over $20 million, and his words to me were, I always keep it simple and clean. Only the financial goobers like to complicate things for the sake of justifying their existence or justifying how much they paid for their education. Please do not look here for a detailed guide to set up an estate plan or a deep theory on investing. That is not what I do. What I do is help people understand and act on time-honored truths about money that will truly change your whole life. This book is not something that has never been said. There are many great money authors out there today, and there are even more in our past. Very little that you read in this book will be something that someone else has not written or said. We often say on our radio show that we give the same financial advice your grandmother would, only we keep our teeth in. I suggest you read a lot of different people, as I do. I have invented very little in this area of money. What I have done is packaged the time-honored information into a process that is doable and has inspired millions of people to act on it. Most of us know what to do, we just have trouble doing it. How do you lose weight? Exercise more and eat less. I know that, and yet I bought and read a couple of books on the subject while I took action, and I lost 30 pounds. Did the authors of those books tell me big ideas that were groundbreaking? No, they simply gave me an action plan and some supporting details to what I already knew had to be done. Welcome to my world. This book is not going to mislead you on investment returns. There are several ignorant people in our country today on the returns offered by investing well. Ignorance is not lack of intelligence, it is simply not knowing. Sadly, many intelligent but ignorant people seem to think that making a 12% rate of return on your money in a long-term investment is impossible. And that if I state that there is a 12% rate of return available, then I have lied to you or misled you. I recommend good growth stock-type mutual funds in this book as a long-term investment and dare to state that you should make 12% on your money over time. The supporting data for that bold statement can be found by looking at the historical averages of the S&P 500 index. Widely regarded as the best single gauge of the U.S. equities market, the Standard & Poor's 500 is an index with 500 of the largest companies in leading industries of the U.S. economy. The S&P 500 has averaged 11.67% per year for the last 80-plus years, as of this writing. This includes the big drop in the 2008 market. Most experts and anyone who has had even one finance class agree that the S&P 500 is a great statistical measure of stock market returns. This is such a standard, or bellwether, that virtually every stock fund will show you its returns in comparison to the S&P 500. I purchased a growth and income stock mutual fund many years ago, that I still invest in, and it has averaged 12.03% per year since 1934, 75 years as of this writing. I bought another last week that has averaged over 13.9% per year since 1973, as of this writing. And yet another with average annual returns of 12.01% since 1984, and another averaging 12.39% since 1973, and yet another averaging 11.72% since 1952. Any decent broker with the heart of a teacher can, in his or her sleep, lead you to funds with long track records averaging over 12%. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't predict a 12% rate when you are considering investments for 10 years or longer. This book is not written by someone with no academic credentials. I seldom list my formal academic credentials because, honestly, I don't think they are important. I have met so many broke people with financial credentials that I almost think it discredits me to have had formal training. Yes, I have a degree in finance. Yes, I have been or am licensed in real estate, insurance, and investments. Yes, I do have many of the stupid letters to put after my name. But the thing that qualifies me most to teach about money is that I have done stupid with zeros on the end. I have been there, done that. I have a PhD in DUMB. So I know what it is like to be scared and scarred. I know what it is like to have my marriage hanging by a thread because of financial stress. I know what it is like to have my hopes and dreams crushed by my own stupid decisions. That qualifies me uniquely to teach and to love hurting people. The other huge qualifier is that I use the principles I teach to personally build wealth. My wife and I have truly lived this book. The things we teach are not theory, they work. But the teaching credential that I am most sure of and which further qualifies me is the hundreds of thousands of stories of people across America being set free by this book. This stuff simply works. So don't take financial advice from broke people. This book is not politically correct. I stated earlier that personal finance is 80% behavior. To properly view behavior and to understand how to change behavior intelligently, we must consider several things. Behavior intelligently viewed takes into account the emotional, the relational, the family history, the socioeconomic impacts, and the spiritual. To ignore any of these while discussing behavior change about money is incomplete and very naive. So I openly discuss the spiritual in this book. As a Christian, I include some Bible verses. This is not a Christian book, and it for sure isn't a Bible study on the subject of money. But this is a book about a proven plan to financial fitness that my team and I have developed over 2 decades, and that plan includes addressing the spiritual issues surrounding money. So I upset both sides, those who don't like it because I include spiritual thoughts in my teachings and those who don't believe my writing is spiritual enough. Either way, you have been warned. This book is not wrong. Don't confuse extreme confidence with arrogance. I am extremely confident that this material works, because millions of people have benefited from it. I am not arrogant because I realize I am not personally responsible for any of the lives changed. The stuff I teach is the truth, and those principles are responsible for changing lives. But I always answer the same questions with the same answers, even though sometimes folks think their situation may be different. It isn't different. The principles stand, and they work every time. This book is not the same as my other books. When we took on the Total Money Makeover project, we had to answer a question of integrity. Could we honestly go into the market and ask my readers to buy another book that said the same thing? I couldn't in good conscience do that. Financial Peace has sold nearly 2 million copies as of this writing, so did I really need to write another book? I came to the conclusion that there was a distinct difference in the two projects. Financial Peace is What to Do with Money. It is a great textbook for common sense money management. So how is the Total Money Makeover different? It is more than a what to do book, it is a how to do it plan. This is a process book. We are aiming at carefully weaving inspiration and information together into a step-by-step plan. Yes, you will find in this book a lot of the same subjects along with many of the same principles I discuss in my other books, but this book is different in that it is a process-driven work. If you are looking for a ton of new information because you are someone who only gathers facts and figures, then you will be disappointed. If you are looking to engage this money thing head-on, you will love this book. Many Financial Peace readers have told me that the Total Money Makeover gave legs to the concepts to which they had been introduced, so they were thankful to read it as well. But again, don't look for some big revelation or chapters of new principles. This book is not getting any complaints or criticism from people who do it. I have never had someone write me saying, I got on a budget, got out of debt, got on the same page with my spouse, built wealth, and I hate it. For those who have followed this plan and discovered a new life of financial freedom, their lives have been changed forever. Wouldn't you like to experience the same transformation? You can be the next success story people hear about. You can have a total money makeover starting today. Flying turkeys and skinny dipping. When I was a child, my grandmother, a second-grade school teacher who also taught drama, used to sit me on her knee and read to me. She read with great enthusiasm and a lot of drama. One of the children's stories she read to me was about the 3 little pigs. One built his house out of straw, one out of twigs, and one out of brick. You know the story. The 2 who built their houses, quick and dirty, goofed off, partied, and made fun of the bricklayer because he was taking too much time and effort to do it right. Of course, when the wind and rains came, the 2 short-term thinkers ended up moving in with their brother. Why? Because he had prepared well enough to weather the storms. The other 2 found their lives completely blown apart. Economic storms, real ones. A huge economic storm hit America and the rest of the world in 2008. As with all strong storms, the only houses that survived were the ones that were built well, on a solid foundation. The rest were blown over. Companies who had been built well survived, those who hadn't are now history. Many once great businesses abandoned their strong foundations by investing in bad, high-risk investments and taking on mountains of debt. Sadly, most of those companies are now history or are owned by someone else. What happened? Well, this is not a textbook on economics, so we won't dissect every detail. However, it is instructive to your Total Money Makeover to look at the event to learn our private lessons. The 30,000-foot view that you would get from an airplane might look like this. Broke people in serious financial trouble borrowed money from greedy bankers at horrible terms and high interest rates to buy homes. The loans were not prime, good loans, so they were accurately called subprime loans. That just means these mortgages were less than good. Duh. This rip-off lending has always been done, but never on such a large scale. In an effort to make more profits to keep their stock prices up, banks and investment bankers began to buy these loans in bulk, and they bought lots of them. What was unthinkable in the investment community just a few years earlier became common practice. Formerly legitimate, upstanding, major banks and investment bankers essentially became loan sharks using very sophisticated financial instruments. For years, the mortgage industry had packaged good mortgages together and sold them as bonds. You have probably heard of Fannie Mae bonds. That used to refer to a group of good Fannie Mae mortgages that were wrapped together and sold as unit, or bond. During this period of stupidity, however, the subprime, bad, loans were packaged together and sold as bonds, a lot of them. We live in a cause and effect world. What you sow, you will reap. In a shocking turn of events, the broke people didn't pay their mortgage payments, he says sarcastically. This, for some unknown reason, seemed to surprise the greedy bankers. Surprise! Broke people can't pay ridiculous house payments. Go figure. The big problem, however, was scale. A lot of broke people didn't pay their payments. So, foreclosure numbers began to rise rapidly. In some boom markets, where the real estate prices had shot up artificially high, the foreclosures began bringing home prices down. And down and down. With values dropping so low, relatively secure and responsible homeowners started to get in trouble too. Fear broke out on Wall Street, and stock prices started dropping. By the time the fear got to Washington, it had become a full-blown panic. And once the panic got to the news media, it had become all-out hysteria. Every day, American consumers watched the hysteria play out on television. With their 401k and home values dropping, they wisely decided this was not a good time to keep spending like a drunken congressman. When we stopped buying stuff at a breakneck speed, the economy slowed, and businesses began hurting everywhere. Companies who were deeply in debt and cash poor began to die. A lot of businesses vanished almost overnight. People stopped buying washers and dryers, so the washer and dryer manufacturer started laying people off, and unemployment rose. This, of course, just made the cycle go around again, forcing real estate and stock prices even lower. Good news, bad news. The good news is that we are recovering and will continue to recover. Some learned the painful lessons on a private, individual level, others learned the economic lessons on a more widespread, national level. Many people didn't learn anything at all. The great news is that, for some of you, this event was your Great Depression, emotionally speaking. The Great Depression permanently changed the way many people handled their money. If you have a grandfather or great-aunt who was an adult during that time, he or she likely has a completely different way of looking at debt, saving, and giving than most people of other generations. That is because your loved one has experience. And as my pastor says, a man with an experience is not at the mercy of a man with an opinion. I went broke 20 years ago, and that experience changed my life. I have applied the principles of this book to my life for the past 2 decades, so when this storm hit in 2008, I was just a spectator. It didn't hurt me a bit. I have actually come out ahead by buying real estate at great prices and investing heavily in the stock market while both were down. I've spent the last 20 years trying to get people to live these total money makeover principles. A lot of people have listened, so when the winds blew and the storms came, they were just as ready as I was. They had a strong foundation. Flying turkeys. What does all this mean for your total money makeover? The first lesson of this economic storm is that your financial process and principles must work in good times and in bad times, otherwise, they don't work. Our economy had been so good for so long that really stupid ideas had been working on the short term. That fooled people into believing that stupid had become smart. In other words, stupid hadn't been stress tested in quite a while. When it finally was, it came up looking, well, stupid. When times are booming, you can do dumb things with money, get sloppy, and take huge risks without realizing it. I have heard it said this way, even a turkey can fly in a tornado. People were running around, buying things they couldn't afford with money they didn't have, to impress people they didn't even like, and they were doing it in record numbers. Worse, they seemed to get away with it. They were like the 2 little pigs with straw and twig homes. As long as the sun was shining, life was a party, and the pig with brick seemed kind of nerdy, or overly conservative, or even fanatical. But when their stupid theories were stress-tested, their houses fell. Jim Collins, one of America's greatest business writers, has a book out called How the Mighty Fall. In this book, he discusses the 5 stages of decline when a business fails, or falls. There is a great application here for our nation's economy and for your life and mine. Collins says the first stage of decline is marked by hubris. Pride and arrogance, mixed with a false notion of invincibility, lead the mighty to take huge, ridiculous risks. In our case, that would be borrowing lots of money and not saving any because my job is stable. I can afford the easy payments with my job. This hubris causes sloppiness and denial of risk. Hey, that sounds like me 20 years ago, right before I went broke. I had been taught a group of myths, lies, that I accepted as truth about money. I thought the rules of risk and restraint didn't apply to me because I was so smart. That led me to build a house of cards that fell the first time there was a light breeze, much less a real storm. Here's the lesson: just because you see a turkey flying in a tornado doesn't mean turkeys can fly. Just because some wild-eyed theory of investing, borrowing, and living without cash reserves works in good times doesn't mean you can survive a storm. Remember, your ways of handling money have to work in good times and in bad. Skinny dipping. Warren Buffett has a great saying, when the tide goes out, you can tell who was skinny dipping. I have taught for years that if you have a bad map, you will be late for, or completely miss, the party. The principles that you build your life on will determine your level of success. If you plan your marriage around a bad map, or bad set of assumptions, then it will likely fail. If you have all the good intentions in the world, but build your financial house on bad ideas, it will fall. I personally experienced this a long time ago. With this last recession, many more Americans are discovering that their theories about money and their assumptions about how money works were wrong. And they discovered they were wrong the hard way, through pain. Overspending that doesn't feel like overspending because things are going well is still overspending. Using debt to invest in real estate or the stock market and the hope of a quick return will cause you to go broke the minute the market turns. Chasing the next get-rich-quick scam, like the lottery, or investing in gold, will always bring you pain. Hiring someone else, like some debt settlement company, to fix your life virtually never works. The myths, lies spread by our culture, that were covered in this book's first 2 editions have all been proven by this economic downturn. If you live the way we teach in this book, you will prosper in good times and in bad times. I have a friend that we will call Chris. Chris told me an interesting story in the middle of the latest recession that illustrates what I am pointing out to you. For 13 years, Chris worked for a large corporation whose name you would recognize. He started his Total Money Makeover about 7 years ago. When I saw him 2 years ago, he ran up to me with a big smile and big hug to proudly proclaim that he was debt-free, including his home. He had absolutely no debt, and had saved $38,000 in his emergency fund. When I saw him again a year later, he had another fun story to share with me. It seems that he and his boss had become best friends over the years that they worked together. That week, his friend, his boss, came into his office, with blood drained from his face and his lip quivering, saying, "I don't know how to tell you this, but corporate is making me lay you off." Chris jumped up from his chair, ran around the desk, gave his friend a big hug, and said, "Cool. How much is the severance?" The company gave him more than $70,000 in severance, and he is now starting his own business, something he has wanted to do for years. He wasn't stressed, but instead saw only opportunity, because he was ready. As of this writing, he will make almost double his old salary with his new business this year. Wow! However, most people live on the other side of the coin. When they get news of a layoff, they have the blood drain from their faces and it is their lips that are quivering. If you have lost your job and are struggling, I am not picking on you. I have seen hard times. But I want you to do what I did when I faced pain brought on by my own stupid decisions and lack of preparation. I said very loudly, "Never again." Next time, well, there won't be a next time. So my prayer for you is that, whatever fear or pain you have gotten out of this last recession, you learn from it. Remember the day when stupid financial tricks were stress-tested and came up looking, well, stupid. I have met many children of the Great Depression who learned their lessons well. They are prosperous and take only the carefully calculated risk. They have seen much, much more extreme economic times than you have seen. But we can still learn our lessons and not get sucked back into the craziness of the last few years. It is time for your Total Money Makeover. Are you ready? 1. The Total Money Makeover Challenge. As lost as a ball in tall weeds. That is exactly how I felt. Although it was 20 years ago, I can still taste the emotion as if it were yesterday. Out of control, lost, no sense of power, I felt dread creep across the room like the afternoon shadows on a cold winter's day. Sitting again at the kitchen table with too much month left at the end of the money, I was not having fun. This adult stuff where a wife looks to you to provide and kids expect to be fed and kept warm was not exactly working. I didn't feel like some powerful adult. Instead, there was a little boy inside me who was very afraid of this month's bills, afraid of this month's mortgage, and absolutely terrified when I considered the future. How was I to send kids to college, retire, enjoy life, and not live at the edge of money worries? The normal American family, it seemed. Every month I sat at that same table with the same worries, fears, and problems. I had too much debt, too little savings, and no sense of control over my life. No matter how hard I worked, it seemed I couldn't win. I was to forever be slave to some banker, to the government, and to the needs of my family. When Sharon and I talked about money, we ended up in a fight, leaving her feeling afraid and me feeling inadequate. The next car purchase, the next house, the kids' college, our entire future seemed out of reach. I had too much debt, too little savings, and no sense of control over my life. I didn't need a get-rich-quick guy to pump me up or tell me to be positive. I didn't need a secret formula to riches. I wasn't afraid of hard work or sacrifice. I didn't want to feel my way into being positive. I was positive of only one thing: I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was tired of sitting down to do the bills and having a heaviness come over me. The hopelessness was overwhelming. I felt like a gerbil in a wheel, run, 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 no traction, no ground covered. Maybe life was just a financial illusion. All the money came in, all the money went out, and only the names were changed to protect the innocent. I owe, so off to work I go. You know the drill and all the cliches that go with the drill. Some months everything seemed to work, and I thought maybe we were going to be okay. I could tell myself then, oh well, this is how everyone lives. Those times offered enough wiggle room that I could continue to lie to myself that we were making headway, but deep down, I knew we weren't. I did it my way, and my way wasn't working enough. This stinks. I finally decided that this non-plan wasn't working. If you have ever had any of those feelings, you are going to love this book, and, more important, you will love your Total Money Makeover. More than 20 years ago, my wife, Sharon, and I went broke. We lost everything due to my stupidity in handling money, or not handling it, as the case may be. Hitting bottom and hitting it hard was the worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever happened to me. We started with nothing, but by the time I was 26 years old, we held real estate worth over $4 million. I was good at real estate, but I was better at borrowing money. Even though I had become a millionaire, I had built a house of cards. The short version of the story is that we went through financial hell and lost everything over a 3-year period of time. We were sued, foreclosed on, and, finally, with a brand new baby and a toddler, we were bankrupt. Scared doesn't begin to cover it. Crushed comes close, but we held on to each other and decided we needed a change. Myths versus truth. Myth: I don't have time to work on a budget, retirement plan, or estate plan. Truth: you don't have time not to. So after losing everything, I went on a quest to find out how money really works, how I could get control of it, and how I could have confidence in handling it. I read everything I could get my hands on. I interviewed older rich people who made money and kept it. That quest led me to a really, really uncomfortable place, my mirror. I came to realize that my money problems, worries, and shortages largely began and ended with the person in my mirror. I realized also that if I could learn to manage the character I shaved with every morning, I could win at money. That quest, the one that ended with me staring at myself in the mirror, led me on a new journey over the last 20 years, the journey of helping others, literally millions of others, take that same quest to the mirror. Live events, Financial Peace University, The Dave Ramsey Show, talk radio and TV show, and the New York Times bestsellers Financial Peace, More Than Enough, and the Total Money Makeover have enabled me to tell millions of Americans what I have learned, the hard way, about money. The big challenge: find a mirror. I have a challenge for you. Are you ready to take on the guy or gal in your mirror? If you are ready to win. I rediscovered God's and Grandma's simple way of handling money. Wealth building isn't rocket science, which is a good thing for me, and probably you. Winning at money is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. What to do isn't the problem, doing it is. Most of us know what to do, but we just don't do it. If I can control the guy in the mirror, I can be skinny and rich. We will let other books work on the skinny, and I will help you with the rich part. No, there are no secrets, and yes, this will be very hard. Hey, if it were easy, every moron walking would be wealthy. Winning at money is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. So my Total Money Makeover begins with a challenge. The challenge is you. You are the problem with your money. The financial channel or some DVD sets aren't your answer, you are. You are the king of your future, and I have a plan. The Total Money Makeover plan isn't theory. It works every single time. It works because it is simple. It works because it gets to the heart of your money problems, you. It is based on a series of prices that must be paid to win. All winners pay a price to win. Some losers pay a price and never win, and that is usually because they didn't have the benefit of a proven plan for financial fitness. Ordinary people, tens of thousands of ordinary people have used the system in this book to get out of debt, regain control, and build wealth. I've scattered their stories throughout the book. If at any point during your makeover you are tempted to quit or you just need a little encouragement, read one of these stories. These people have sacrificed for a short period of time so they will never have to sacrifice again. If you are looking for a roadmap to get you home, you've found it. If you are looking for something easy or fast, you have the wrong book. If you are looking for a book to help you pass your CPA exam in the area of financial knowledge, you have the wrong book. If you are looking for a writer who has intricate academic theories that don't work in the real world, you've got the wrong guy. I have many of the academic pedigrees, but I ended up broke. I have actually twice become a millionaire from nothing. The first time I was in my 20s, the money was in real estate, and I lost that due to my stupidity. The second time I was not yet 40, but I did the money thing right that time, and I am debt-free. Shocking stats: 90% of people in our culture buy things they can't afford. I often hear about broke finance professors who bemoan that I am way too simple, or as an emailer told me on the Dave Ramsey show one day, you are a one-trick pony. To those of you who say you have great but unexecuted plans, I say, prove it. I have. I like the way I've built wealth better than the way you haven't. You will meet people, educated and uneducated, throughout this book who have won, or begun to win, with money for the first time in their lives. The Total Money Makeover works. The Total Money Makeover motto: this plan works, but it will cost you. It will teach you to say new words, like no. In short, your Total Money Makeover will be a personal money makeover where you learn this motto: if you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. This is the motto of your Total Money Makeover. It's my way of reminding you that if you will make the sacrifices now that most people aren't willing to make, later on you will be able to live as those folks will never be able to live. You will notice the motto all through the book, even across the bottom of the pages. I'm sorry there isn't an easier path to feature in the motto, but the good thing about this one is that it works. You can repeat the motto to yourself as you pass up a purchase in order to hit your goals. When you work late and are tired, you can say the motto to yourself. Of course, this isn't a magic formula, I'm not into that. But it does remind you that you will win, and the payoff will be worth the cost. Dumb math and stupid tax, a false sense of security. Some people want to buy a new car for the warranty. If you lose $17,000 of value over 4 years, on average you have paid too much for a warranty. You could have completely rebuilt the car twice for $17,000. Some of you are so immature that you are unwilling to delay pleasure for a greater result. I will show you exactly how to get the result you want, so the price you pay will not be in vain. I don't want to walk across hot coals because it is fun, but if I can be shown how a short, painful walk will do away with the lifetime of worry, frustration, stress, and fear that being constantly broke brings me, then bring on the hot coals. To denial: I'm not that out of shape. Several years ago I realized I had let my body dissolve into flab. I had worked so hard for so many years that I had abandoned the care of my physical condition. The first step to getting into shape was to realize I needed to change my ways, but the second and equally important step was to identify the obstacles to getting there. What would stop me from getting into shape? Once I understood those obstacles, I began a process to lose weight, grow muscle, and become more fit. Your Total Money Makeover is the same. You need to realize there's a problem, but you must also see what could hinder your move toward financial fitness. The next few chapters will identify some major obstacles to your total money makeover. Myths versus truth. Myth: debt consolidation saves interest, and you have one smaller payment. Truth: debt consolidation is dangerous because you treat only the symptom. Look in the mirror. Take a long look. What do you see? Suck in that gut, hold up your chest, and really look at yourself. It doesn't matter how many angles or poses you take, the mirror is cruel. Well, I'm really not that fat, maybe just a little flabby. My dad used to say that 90% of solving a problem is realizing there is one. Focused intensity, life or death intensity, is required for you to reset your money spending patterns, and one of your biggest obstacles is denial. The sad thing is that you can be financially mediocre in this country, financially flabby, and still be average. And if the truth be known, being average, normal, and financially flabby is pretty much okay by most folks' standards. This, however, is not a book for the wimpy among us. This is a book about winning, about really having something. Don't wait to have denial knocked out of you for several years. I have spoken multiple times a year to live audiences of 2,000 to 12,000 people, teaching them the ideas in this book. After one live event where I spoke to 4,000 people, Sarah told me that her total money makeover came only after life placed a call to her. She said she had heard me quote the Wall Street Journal as reporting that 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, but she honestly thought she was in the 30% who were fine. She had financially struck a pose, and the pose was denial. Dave rants. For your own good, for the good of your family and why our future, grow a backbone. When something is wrong, stand up and say it is wrong, and don't back down. With 2 sons from her previous marriage, Sarah had just remarried and was happy and secure in her job, as was her husband, John. Their new life together seemed awesome. Their household combined income was about $75,000 per year, with the normal debts of a small student loan, a car loan, and only $5,000 on a credit card. With life under control and even going well, Sarah and John decided their new family needed a new home, so the builder was selected and construction began. Somewhere deep inside there may have been uneasiness, but it was very deep. Finally the day came when the new home was complete. Everything was going to be fine now, the new family and the new home, the way it is supposed to be. In May they moved into the new home, complete with big new payments. Dumb math and stupid tax. Washer and dryer for sale, $1,800. Yes, that's correct, and you, too, can get this sweet deal. Just head on down to your local rent-to-own store. In September, Sarah's boss asked to see her in his office. She was excelling at work and braced herself for a big, girl, followed by a nice bonus or raise. Instead, the boss explained her job was being eliminated. Downsizing, he said. Her life's work was cut from her, and $45,000 of their $75,000 income, with the boss's chilling words. Not only was her pride hurt and her career path cut short, a creeping terror grew deep down inside as she drove home to tell John. That night there were tears, fears, and the sudden stark realization that she and John were financially fat. Suddenly, Sarah and her family were facing foreclosure on the house and repossession of the car. The basics of life had become precious. Sarah and John had listened to the Dave Ramsey show on the radio, but they always thought someone else needed a total money makeover. After all, they always held their stomachs in when standing in front of the mirror. The night after her layoff was the first night they looked in the financial mirror and saw fat people. The sight wasn't pretty: big house payments, fat car payments, large student loans, bloated credit cards, anorexic savings, and no budget. They saw fat people. When you are physically fat, it is hard to be in denial, because there is the ever-widening belt line. When you are financially fat, however, you can fake it and look good for a while. Your friends and family will participate in your fantasy denial, which makes you believe you are doing just fine. One of the 4 major factors that keep people from winning in money by getting a total money makeover is not realizing they need one. Sadly, some of the most dramatic makeovers I've seen have been by people who had life smack them so hard they got the denial knocked out of them, like Sarah. If life isn't smacking you around at the moment, you are actually in greater danger than Sarah and John the night of the layoff. You are a real candidate for financial mediocrity or even a major crisis brought on by denial, and you have to see the need to make dramatic changes. If you are apathetic because everything seems just fine, then you will be unwilling to make the huge changes needed to get huge results. Frog legs. Years ago, in a motivational seminar by the master, Zig Ziglar, I heard a story about how mediocrity will sneak up on you. The story goes that if you drop a frog into boiling water, he will sense the pain and immediately jump out. However, if you put a frog in room temperature water, he will swim around happily, and as you gradually turn the water up to boiling, the frog will not sense the change. The frog is lured to his death by gradual change. We can lose our health, our fitness, and our wealth gradually, one day at a time. It might be a cliché, but that's because it is true. The enemy of the best is not the worst. The enemy of the best is just fine. The pain of change. Change is painful. Few people have the courage to seek out change. Most people won't change until the pain of where they are exceeds the pain of change. When it comes to money, we can be like the toddler in a soiled diaper. I know it smells bad, but it's warm and it's mine. Only when the rash comes will we cry out. I hope Sarah's story and the others in this book will make you unwilling to stay where you are. If you keep doing the same things, you will keep getting the same results. You are where you are right now financially as a sum total of the decisions you've made to this point. If you like where you are, keep it up. Keep in mind, however, why you are reading a book called The Total Money Makeover. Is it because deep down you have the same uneasy feelings Sarah had but didn't address until it was almost too late? Are you really looking for something more? If so, I've got great news. This plan works. Break through the temptation to remain in the same situation, and opt for the pain of change before the pain of not changing searches you out. Don't wait for a heart attack to show you that you are overweight. Cut the carbs, the fats, the sugars, and lace up the running shoes now. Few people have the courage to seek out change. The good news about Sarah and John was that the financial heart attack they had made them address their financial eating and exercise habits. The layoff was a wake-up call and the end to denial. After a year of very hard times, Sarah was able to find a whole new career. Only this time when the checks started rolling in, Sarah and John were using this system. Every paycheck became an exciting event because they had a plan. They were financially losing weight and toning up. It wasn't a quick process, but after following the steps over time, today they are really winning. The night I met Sarah and John, they were 2 years into their plan, and smiling. They told me they were debt-free except for their house, and they had $12,000 in the bank just for emergencies. They had broken through their own denial, but they made their family uncomfortable because they refused to live like everyone else. Albert Einstein said, "Great spirits have often encountered violent opposition from weak minds." John's dad had made fun of their plan and the extra jobs they took to win. He asked if they had joined some cult or something. Once Sarah and John had realized they were the emperor with no clothes, denial was no longer an option. They also realized all they had been doing with money to impress others, but no more. Sarah chuckled as she told me how she used to think, "We must be doing well, all these credit card companies think I'm creditworthy. If I'm getting approvals from all these banks, I must be okay because, otherwise, they wouldn't want to loan me money. Besides, I pay my credit cards of every month. How could I be in any trouble? I can afford to buy that car or that furniture if I can afford the payment." John was grinning now, too, as they both laughed at the language of financially fat people who think they are fine, the language of denial. As we closed our conversation that night, Sarah told me that while she hoped she or John never lost another job unexpectedly, they are ready if they do. We are no longer living a lie. We know where we are, we know where we are going, and we know how we are going to get there, she said. She and John wanted to leave me a gift for inspiring their total money makeover, but I assured them they already had. 3 debt myths. Debt is not your tool. Red-faced and fists clenched, the toddler yells with murder in his voice, "I want it! I want it! I want it!" We have all watched this scene unfold in the grocery store. We may even have watched our own children do this, once. Now that I'm older and more mellow, I sometimes grin a little as a young mom tries without success to stifle the out-of-control screams of a child who is denied something. It is human nature to want it and want it now. It is also a sign of immaturity. Being willing to delay pleasure for a greater result is a sign of maturity. However, a culture teaches us to live for the now. I want it, we scream, and we can get it if we are willing to go into debt. Debt is a means to obtain the I want it's before we can afford them. Joining in the lie. I have heard it said that if you tell a lie often enough, loudly enough, and long enough, the myth will become accepted as a fact. Repetition, volume, and longevity will twist and turn a myth, or a lie, into a commonly accepted way of doing things. Entire populations have been lulled into the approval of ghastly deeds and even participation in them by gradually moving from the truth to a lie. Throughout history, twisted logic, rationalization, and incremental changes have allowed normally intelligent people to be party to ridiculous things. Propaganda, in particular, played a big part in allowing these things to happen. Dumb math and stupid tax. Freedom 15 years early for about $250 a month. Imagine you buy a $130,000 home, for which you take out a $110,000 mortgage at 7%. The final cost after all is said and done and paid would be $283,520 after 30 years or $197,840 after 15. The difference? Just $256 extra per month. Go with 15 years. We have propaganda in our culture today. I'm not speaking in a political sense, but rather recognizing that there are people out there who want us to think their way and who will go to great lengths to accomplish that. The financial and banking industries, in particular, are very good at teaching us their way of handling money, which, of course, leads us to buy their products. If I see an ad again and again that tells me I will be cool and sharp looking if I drive a certain car, I can fall under the illusion that with the purchase of that car, those good things will happen to me. We may not really believe that we will become a model just from purchasing a car, but notice that ugly people aren't used in the TV spots to sell cars. We aren't really falling for that lie, or are we? I'm just asking. After all, we do buy the car and then justify our purchase on the basis of something academic like gas mileage. When we participate in what the crowd identifies as normal, even if it is stupid, we gain acceptance into the club. Sometimes we don't even realize what we are doing is stupid because we have been taught that it's just the way you do it, and so we never ask why. As we participate in the myth, we learn to spout the principles of the myth. After the years go by and we have invested more money and time into the myth, we become great disciples and can preach the points of the myth with great fervor and volume. We become such experts on the myth that we can sell others on joining the lie. I once joined in the lie, but no more. Don't let the monkeys pull you down. Debt has been sold to us so aggressively, so loudly, and so often that to imagine living without debt requires myth-busting. We have to systematically destroy the inner workings of the myths. Debt is so ingrained into our culture that most Americans can't even envision a car without a payment, a house without a mortgage, a student without a loan, and credit without a card. We have been sold debt with such repetition and with such fervor that most folks cannot conceive what it would be like to have no payments. Just as slaves born into slavery can't visualize freedom, we Americans don't know what it would be like to wake up to no debt. In 2007, 7 billion credit card offers were put in our mailboxes, and we are taking advantage of those offers. According to CardTrack, Americans currently have $928 billion in credit card debt. We can't do without debt, or can we? Working with tens of thousands of people on their Total Money Makeover in the last several years, I have found that a major barrier to winning is our view of debt. Most people who have made the decision to stop borrowing money have experienced something weird: ridicule. Friends and family who are disciples of the myth that debt is good have ridiculed those on the path to freedom. John Maxwell tells of a study done on monkeys. A group of monkeys were locked in a room with a pole at the center. Some luscious, ripe bananas were placed on top of the pole. When a monkey would begin to climb the pole, the experimenters would knock him off with a blast of water from a fire hose. Each time a monkey would climb, off he would go, until all the monkeys had been knocked off repeatedly, thus learning that the climb was hopeless. The experimenters then observed that the other primates would pull down any monkey trying to climb. They replaced a single monkey with one who didn't know the system. As soon as the new guy tried to climb, the others would pull him down and punish him for trying. One by one, each monkey was replaced and the scene repeated until there were no monkeys left in the room that had experienced the fire hose. Still, none of the new guys were allowed to climb. The other monkeys pulled them down. Not one monkey in the room knew why, but none were allowed to get the bananas. We aren't monkeys, but sometimes we exhibit behavior that seems rather chimp-like. We don't even remember why, we just know that debt is needed to win. So when a loved one decides to get a total money makeover, we laugh, get angry, and pull him down. We Americans are like the last set of monkeys. With rolled eyes we spout the pat lines associated with the myth as if anyone not wanting to have debt is unintelligent. That person must be a simpleton, a fanatic, or, worst of all, uneducated in finance. Then why are so many finance professors broke? I think a broke finance professor is like a shop teacher with missing fingers. Myth versus truth. I want to expose the inner workings of the debt myth by looking at many of the sub-myths. However, I need to warn you to watch out for your instinct to defend the American way of borrowing. Calm down. Relax and go for a ride with me for a few pages. I might be onto something. If, at the end of this myth-busting section, you conclude I'm just a nut with a book, you will not be forced to change. But just in case the tens of thousands of families who have experienced a total money makeover have something to say to you, read on in a relaxed state. Let your guard down. You can always put the shields back up later. When training for my first career in real estate, I remember being told that debt was a tool. Debt is like a fulcrum and lever, allowing us to lift what we otherwise could not. We can buy a home, a car, start a business, or go out to eat and not be bothered with having to wait. I remember a finance professor telling us that debt was a two-edged sword, which could cut for you like a tool but could also cut into you and bring harm. The myth has been sold that we should use OPM, other people's money, to prosper. The academic garbage is spread really thick on this issue. We are told with sufficient snobbery and noses in the air that sophisticated and disciplined financiers use debt to their advantage. Careful there, you'll get a sunburn on your upper lip. Debt brings on enough risk to offset any advantage that could be gained through leverage of debt. My contention is that debt brings on enough risk to offset any advantage that could be gained through leverage of debt. Given time, a lifetime, risk will destroy the perceived returns purported by the mythsayers. I once was a mythsayer myself and could repeat the myths very convincingly. I was especially good with the debt is a tool myth. I have even sold rental property that was losing money to investors by showing them, with very sophisticated internal rates of return, how they would actually make money. Boy, what a reach! I could spout the myth with enthusiasm, but life and God had some lessons to teach me. Only after losing everything I owned and finding myself bankrupt did I think that risk should be factored in, even mathematically. It took my waking up in intensive care to realize how dumb and dangerous this myth is. Life hit me hard enough to get my attention and teach me. According to Proverbs 22 verse 7, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender, NRSV. I was confronted with this scripture and had to make a conscious decision of who was right, my broke finance professor, who taught that debt is a tool, or God, who showed obvious disdain for debt. Beverly Sills had it right when she said, there is no shortcut to any place worth going. I have found that if you look into the lives of the kind of people you want to be like, you will find common themes. If you want to be skinny, study skinny people, and if you want to be rich, do what lots of rich people do, not what some mythsayer says to do. The Forbes 400 is a list of the richest 400 people in America as rated by Forbes magazine. When surveyed, 75% of the Forbes 400 rich people, not your broke brother-in-law with an opinion, said the best way to build wealth is to become and stay debt-free. Walgreens, Cisco, and Harley-Davidson are run debt-free. I have met with thousands of millionaires in my years as a financial counselor, and I have never met one who said he made it all with Discover card bonus points. They all lived on less than they made and spent only when they had cash. No payments. History also teaches us that debt wasn't always a way of life, In fact, 3 of the biggest lenders today were founded by people who hated debt. Sears now makes more money on credit than on the sale of merchandise. They are not a store, they are a lender with some stuff out front. However, in 1910 the Sears catalog stated, "Buying on credit is folly." J.C. Penney department stores make millions annually on their plastic, but their founder was nicknamed James "Cash" Penney because he detested the use of debt. Henry Ford thought debt was a lazy man's method to purchase items, and his philosophy was so ingrained in Ford Motor Company that Ford didn't offer financing until 10 years after General Motors did. Now, of course, Ford Motor Credit is one of the most profitable of Ford Motors operations. The old school saw the folly of debt, the new school saw the opportunity to take advantage of the consumer with debt. You have probably heard a lot of the submyths, which fall in line behind the big one that says, debt is a tool. So that we leave no stone unturned, let's review and debunk each of the myths spread by a culture that has officially bought the lie. Myth: if I loan money to friends or relatives, I am helping them. Truth: if I loan money to a friend or relative, the relationship will be strained or destroyed. The only relationship that would be enhanced is the kind resulting from one party being the master and the other party a servant. The old joke is that if you loan your brother-in-law $100 and he never speaks to you again, was it worth the investment? We have all experienced loaning someone money and finding an immediate distancing in the relationship. Joan called my radio show one day complaining about how a loan had ruined her relationship with one of her best friends at work. She had loaned the lady, a broke single mom, $50 until payday. Payday came and went, and her friend, someone she used to talk to at lunch every day, someone who was her confidant and sounding board, now avoided her. Shame and guilt had entered the scene with no provocation. We don't control how debt affects relationships, debt does that independently of what we want. The borrower is slave to the lender, and you change the spiritual dynamic of relationships when you loan loved ones money. They are no longer a friend, uncle, or child, they are now your servant. I know some of you think that is overstated, but tell me why Thanksgiving dinner tastes different when a loan has been served. Eating with your master is different from eating with your family. Joan was really torn up about losing this friendship. I asked her if the friendship was worth $50. She gushed that it was worth many times that, so I told her to call her friend and tell her the debt was forgiven, a gift. The forgiveness of the debt helped her remove the master-servant dynamic from the relationship. Of course, it would be better if that dynamic had never entered the scene. I also suggested 2 stipulations to the forgiveness of the debt. First, that the friend agree to help someone in need someday, and second, that she never loan friends money. Let's break the myth chain. In Joan's case, the myth chain of loaning a friend money will be broken only if they both learn their lesson. The lesson is that while it is fine to give money to friends in need if you have it, loaning them money will mess up relationships. The borrower is slave to the lender. I have dealt with hundreds of strained and destroyed families in which well-meaning people loaned money to help. Parents loaned the 25-year-old newly married couple the down payment money for the first home. It all seems so noble and nice until the daughter-in-law catches the disapproving glances at the mention of the couple's upcoming vacation. She knows the meaning of the glances, that she should check with these well-meaning, noble parents-in-law before she buys toilet paper until the loan is repaid. A lifetime of resentment can be born right there. The grandfather loans the 20-year-old $25,000 to purchase that new 4-wheel drive truck he needs. Of course, the loan is at 6%, much better than Junior can get at the bank and much better than Grandpa gets from his CD at the bank. Everyone wins, or do they? What happens when Junior loses his job and can't pay Grandpa, who is from the old school where you dig ditches till midnight if you have to in order to honor your word? Now Junior and Grandpa are at odds, so Junior sells the truck and pays Grandpa the $19,000 he gets for it. Grandpa hadn't taken a lien on the title, so he now expects broke, angry, and unemployed Junior to repay the balance of $6,000. Grandpa will never see his $6,000 or his grandson again. In some perverted twist of the myth, mixed with shame and guilt, Junior's mind somehow concocts that this is all Grandpa's fault, and he abandons the relationship. Hundreds of times I've seen relationships strained and sometimes destroyed. We all have, but we continue to believe the myth that a loan to a loved one is a blessing. It isn't, it is a curse. Don't put that burden on any relationship you care about. Myth: by co-signing a loan, I am helping a friend or relative. Truth: be ready to repay the loan. The bank wants a co-signer for a reason, which is that they don't expect the friend or relative to pay. Think with me for a moment. If debt is the most aggressively marketed product in our culture today, if lenders must meet sales quotas for loan production, if lenders can project the likelihood of a loan's going into default with unbelievable accuracy, if all these things are true, and the lending industry has denied your friend or relative a loan, there is little doubt the potential borrower is trouble just looking for a place to happen. Yet people across America make the very unwise, yes, dumb, decision to co-sign for someone else every day. We continue to believe the myth that a loan to a loved one is a blessing. The lender requires a co-signer because there is a very high statistical chance that the applicant won't pay. So why do we appoint ourselves as the generous, all-knowing, benevolent helper to override the judgment of an industry that is foaming at the mouth to lend money, and yet has deemed our friend or relative a deadbeat looking for a place to fail, or at least a loan default looking for a new home? Why do we co-sign knowing full well the inherent problems? We enter this ridiculous situation only on emotion. Intellect could not take us on this ride. We know they will pay because we know them. Wrong. Parents co-sign for a young couple to buy a home. Why do they need a co-signer? Because they couldn't afford the home. Parents co-sign for a teenager to buy a car. Why would parents do this? So he can learn to be responsible. No. What the teenager has learned is, if you can't pay for something, buy it anyway. The sad thing is that those of us who have co-signed loans know how they end up. We end up paying them, but only after our credit is damaged or ruined. If you co-sign for a car, the lender will not contact you when the loan is paid late every month, but your credit is damaged every month. The lender will not contact you before they repossess the car, but you now have a repo on your credit report. They will contact you to pay the difference between the debt and the below wholesale repo price they got for the car, which is called a deficit. If the lender did contact you, there is nothing you can legally do to force the sale of the car, because you don't own it, you are merely on the hook for the debt. When you co-sign on a house, you will get the same results. According to Proverbs 17 verse 18, it's stupid to guarantee someone else's loan, CEV. That pretty well sums it up. Just like trying to bless a loved one with a loan, many people are trying to help by co-signing, and the result is damaged credit and damaged or destroyed relationships. I have co-signed loans and ended up paying them. One poor guy co-signed for me, and he ended up paying when I went broke. If you truly want to help someone, give money. If you don't have it, then don't sign up to pay it, because you likely will. I see cases of people caught in the co-signing trap every day on the Dave Ramsey Show, our radio talk show. Kevin called to complain that a mortgage company was counting his co-signing for his mom's car against him as a debt even though she had insurance that would pay the loan if she died. Of course they count it, Kevin. It is a debt you are liable for. The mortgage company isn't worrying about her dying, they are worried about her not paying, which would require Kevin to make her car payments and then possibly not be able to pay his mortgage. Joe, another caller, was surprised to find he was on the hook for $16,000 on a mobile home he co-signed for 15 years ago. 10 years ago his brother's mobile home was repoed, and the bank sold it for $16,000 less than was owed. Now, 10 years later, the bank caught up with Joe and wanted its money. Joe was angry that this could happen. Most co-signers have no concept of the trip they've signed up for. Brian emailed me about his girlfriend's car. It seems Brian co-signed for a $5,000 car for his sweetie. Sweetie took off with the car, he can't find her, and, surprise of surprises, she isn't making the payments. Now, either his credit shows him as a deadbeat, or he makes payments on a car he can't find for a girl he doesn't want to find. That sums up co-signing, broken hearts and broken wallets. That's how co-signing usually goes, so unless you are looking for a broken heart and a broken wallet, don't do it. Myth: cash advance, payday loans, rent-to-own, title pawning, and tote-the-note car lots are needed to help lower-income people get ahead. Truth: these rip-off examples of predatory lending are designed to take advantage of lower-income people and benefit only the owners of the companies making the loans. lower-income people will remain at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder if they fall for these rip-offs. These lenders, or, as I like to call them, the scum of the scum, are bottom feeders and legally make themselves rich on the backs of the poor or those soon to be poor. The lending rates of these types of operations are over 100% interest, and if you want to stay on the bottom, keep dealing with these guys. You know why these types of operations are located only at the poor end of town? Because rich people won't play. That is how they got to be rich people. The payday loan is one of the fastest growing trash lenders out there. You write a hot check for $225, dated 1 week from now, which will be payday. They will give you $200 cash on the spot. All for a mere $25 service charge, which equates to over 650% interest annually. Mike called my talk show recently and was caught in a web of payday loans. He had not yet had a total money makeover and was still spending like always. He kept adding loan after loan until he couldn't beat the shell game he had created. Basically, Mike had borrowed from one trash lender to pay another, and by doing this again and again, had created a cycle of financial death. He was panicked because he was being threatened with criminal charges for writing bad checks by the very places that have a business model based on post-dated bad checks. The sad thing is that the only way out for Mike is to pop the balloon. He has to stop paying them, close his accounts, and then meet with each lender to work out payment arrangements. That will mean extra jobs and selling things around the house. This type of business is legalized loan sharking. Some states, like Georgia and Arkansas, have legally run payday loan businesses out of their state. Others, like New York and New Jersey, limit the amount of annual interest they can charge. Even the federal government recognized the problem and put a cap of 36% on payday loans made to military personnel. Hopefully other states will follow suit. The classic tote the note car lot is no better. Most of these transactions involve older, cheaper cars. The dealer purchases these cars and sells them for a down payment equal to what he paid for the car, so the payments at 18 to 38% interest paid weekly are all gravy. Tow trucks all over town recognize these exact cars because the car being sold has been sold many times and repeatedly repoed by the dealer. Every time the dealer sells the car, his return on investment skyrockets. The payments could have purchased the car for cash in a matter of weeks. In fact, the down payment could have purchased the car if the buyer had been a little more savvy. Rent-to-own is one of the worst examples of the little red-faced kid in "I want it now" mode. The Federal Trade Commission continues to investigate this industry because the effective interest rates in rent-to-own transactions are over 1,800% on average. People rent items they can't possibly afford to buy because they look only at how much a week and think, I can afford this. Well, when you look at the numbers, no one can afford this. The average washer and dryer will cost you just $20 per week for 90 weeks. That is a total of $1,800 for a washer and dryer you could have bought new at full retail price for $500 and slightly used for $200. As my old professor used to say about the own part of rent-to-own, you should live so long. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have in order to impress people we don't like. If you had saved $20 per week for just 10 weeks, you could have bought the scratch and dent model off the floor at the same rent-to-own store for $200. Or you could have bought a used set out of the classifieds or online. It pays to look past the weekend and suffer through going to the laundromat with your quarters. When you think short-term, you always set yourself up for being ripped off by a predatory lender. If the red-faced kid, "I want it, and I want it now," rules your life, you will stay broke. If you use payday loans, tote the note, and rent-to-own, please understand that you are being destroyed financially. These businesses feed on the working poor, and you must avoid them at all costs if you want to win with money. Myth: 90 days same as cash equals using other people's money for free. Truth: 90 days is not the same as cash. The silly marketing that America falls for has resulted in this. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have in order to impress people we don't like. 90 days same as cash has exploded in furniture, electronics, and appliance sales. I recently met a lady who financed her dog at the pet store. But I paid him off early, she said proudly. Good thing for Rover that he was able to avoid the repo man. Dave rants. Whole life insurance is a horrible product. Why would you pay someone interest on your own savings? That's backward, and it does not make you smart. 90 days is not the same as cash for 3 basic reasons. 1. If you will flash cash, $100 bills, in front of a manager who has a sales quota to meet, you will likely get a discount. If you can't get a discount, go to the competitor and get one. You do not get the discount when you sign up for the finance plan. 2. Most people don't pay off the debt in the allotted time. Nationally, 88% of these contracts convert to debt, a debt where you are charged a rip-off interest rate of 24 to 38%, and they backcharge you to the date of purchase. Please don't tell me you are the one who is actually going to pay it off. A $1,000 stereo, don't forget, you didn't get a discount, it will not make you rich in 90 days. But $1,000 left in a savings account at 3% annual interest will earn you $7.50 in 90 days. Wow, some financial genius you are. 3. You are playing with snakes, and you will get bitten. Marge called my radio show with this little story. She and her husband purchased a big screen TV at a nationally known electronics store. This couple paid off the big screen slightly early to be sure they would not be tricked into the interest being backcharged. No such luck. They had declined the disability and life insurance for a charge of $174, but apparently the salesperson had fraudulently initialed the contract in that area, something that happens more frequently than you think. So although our brilliant couple thought they had paid off the TV, they still had a balance and were charged with the interest back through the entire deal. They were fighting it, but it would take hiring a handwriting expert and going to court with an attorney to avoid paying a bill under $1,000, even though they did not owe it. That is disheartening. The little game of, "we are going to use your money for free," backfired big time. I recently purchased a TV in that exact same store for cash. I got a discount and walked out with my TV. No hassle, no court costs, no interest, no lies. No, Virginia, 90 days is not the same as cash. Myth: car payments are a way of life, you'll always have one. Truth: staying away from car payments by driving reliable used cars is what the average millionaire does. That is how he or she became a millionaire. Taking on a car payment is one of the dumbest things people do to destroy their chances of building wealth. The car payment is most folks' largest payment except for their home mortgage, so it steals more money from the income than virtually anything else. The Federal Reserve notes that the average car payment is $495 over 64 months. Most people get a car payment and keep it throughout their lives. As soon as a car is paid off, they get another payment because they need a new car. If you keep a $495 car payment throughout your life, which is normal, you miss the opportunity to save that money. If you invested $495 per month from age 25 to age 65, a normal working lifetime, in the average mutual fund averaging 12%, the 80-year stock market average, you would have $5,881,799.14 at age 65. Hope you like the car. Some of you had your nose in the air as intellectual snobs when I illustrated how bad rent to own is because you would never enter such an establishment, and yet you are doing worse on your car deal. If you put $495 per month in a cookie jar for just 10 months, you have nearly $5,000 for a cash car. I am not suggesting you drive a $5,000 car your whole life, but that is how you start without debt. Then you can save the same amount again and trade up to a $10,000 car 10 months later and up to a $15,000 car 10 months after that. In just 30 months, or 2.5 years, you can drive a paid-for $15,000 car, never having made a payment, and never have to make payments again. Taking on car payments because everyone else does it does not make it smart. Will your broke relatives and friends make fun of your junk car while you do this? Sure they will, but that is a very good sign you are on the right track. Shocking stats. Over 97% of people don't systematically pay extra on their mortgage. Having been a millionaire and gone broke, I dug my way out by making a decision about looking good versus being good. Looking good is when your broke friends are impressed by what you drive, and being good is having more money than they have. Are you starting to realize that the Total Money Makeover is also in your heart? You have to reach the point that what people think is not your primary motivator. Reaching the goal is the motivator. Do you remember the circus game where you swing the large hammer over your head to hit the lever to send a weight up a pole to ring the bell? You reach the point that you want to ring the bell. Who cares if you are a 98-pound weakling with gawky form? The girls are still impressed when the bell is rung. When the goal, not how you look, begins to matter, you are on your way to a total money makeover. Today I drive very nice, very expensive, slightly used cars, but it wasn't always that way. After going broke, I drove a borrowed 400,000-mile Cadillac with a vinyl roof torn loose so that it filled up with air like a parachute. The predominant color on this car was Bondo. I drove the Bondo buggy for what felt like 10 years during one 3-month period. I had dropped from a Jaguar to a borrowed Bondo buggy. This was not fun, but I knew that if I would live like no one else, later I could live like no one else. Today I am convinced that my wife and I are able to do anything we want financially partially because of the car sacrifices we made in the early days. I believe, with everything within me, that we are winning because of the heart change that allowed us to drive old, beat-up cars in order to win. If you insist on driving new cars with payments your whole life, you will literally blow a life's fortune on them. If you are willing to sacrifice for a while, you can have your life's fortune and drive quality cars. I'd opt for the millionaire strategy. Myth: leasing a car is what sophisticated people do. You should lease things that go down in value and take the tax advantage. Truth: consumer advocates, noted experts, and a good calculator will confirm that the car lease is the most expensive way to operate a vehicle. Consumer Reports, Smart Money Magazine, and my calculator tell me that leasing a car is the worst possible way to acquire a vehicle. In effect, you are renting to own. The cost of capital, which is the interest rate, is extremely high, yet most new car deals this year will be a fleece. I mean, a lease. They are barred. Sorry, that's my impression of a sheep getting fleeced. The auto industry lobbyists are so powerful that the law does not require full lender disclosure. The industry argues that you are merely renting, which you are, so they shouldn't be required to show you the actual effective interest rate. The Federal Trade Commission requires a truth in lending statement when you buy a car or get a mortgage, but not on a lease, so you don't know what you are paying unless you are very good with a calculator. Having seen several hundred lease agreements entered into by people I have counseled, my financial calculator confirms that the average interest rate is 14%. Most new car deals this year will be a fleece. I mean, a lease. Shouldn't you lease or rent things that go down in value? Not necessarily, and the math doesn't work on a car, for sure. Follow me through this example. If you lease, your car with a value of $22,000 for 3 years, and when you turn it in at the end of that 3-year lease the car is worth $10,000, someone has to cover the $12,000 loss. You're not stupid, so you know that General Motors, Ford, or any of the other auto giants aren't going to put together a plan to lose money. Your fleece lease payment is designed to cover the loss in value. $12,000 spread over 36 months is equal to $333 per month, plus provide profit, the interest you pay. Where did you get a deal in that? You didn't. On top of that, there is the charge of 10 to 17 cents per mile for going over the allotted miles and the penalties everyone turning in a lease has experienced for excessive wear and tear, which takes into account every little nick, dent, carpet tear, smudge, or smell. You end up writing a large check just to walk away after renting your car. The whole idea of the back-end penalties is twofold: to get you to lease another one so you can painlessly roll the gotchas into the new lease, and to make sure the car company makes money. Smart Money Magazine quotes the National Auto Dealers Association, NADA, as stating the average new car purchased for cash makes the dealer an $82 profit. When the dealer can get you to finance with them, they sell the financing contract and make an average of $775 per car. But if they can get you to fleece the car, the dealer can sell that fleece to the local bank or GMAC, Ford Motor Credit, Toyota Credit, etc., for an average of $1,300. The typical car dealer makes their money in the finance office and the shop, not in the sale of new cars. Car fleecing is exploding because dealers know it is their largest profit center. We live in a culture that quit asking, how much, and instead asks, how much down, and how much a month? If you look at only the monthly outlay, then you will always fleece, because it almost always costs less down and less a month, but in the long run, it is much more expensive. Once again, the red-faced kid bought something he couldn't afford using an unwise method and then attempted to justify his stupidity. That red-faced stuff won't work if you want a total money makeover. Craig called my radio show to argue about leasing because his CPA said he should lease a car. Proof that some CPAs can't add, or at least don't take the time to. Craig owned his own business and thought the tax write-off if his business owned the car made fleecing smart. Craig had the $20,000 cash to buy a 1-year-old car just like the one he wanted, but instead he was going to fleece a new $30,000 one. He missed 2 important points. First, 98% of fleecing is done on a new car, which rapidly loses value, not a wise business decision. Second, creating an unneeded business expense for the sake of a tax write-off is bad math. Let's say that Craig fleeced a car for $416 per month, $5,000 per year, and used it 100% for business, which is highly unlikely and most times won't survive an audit. If you have a tax write-off of $5,000, you don't pay taxes on that money. If Craig didn't have the $5,000 write-off, he would pay taxes on that $5,000, which would be about $1,500 in taxes. So Craig's CPA's suggestion that he send the car company $5,000 to keep from sending the government $1,500 sounds as though he can't add. Plus, Craig now is responsible for a $30,000 car that is dropping in value instead of a $20,000 car that took the worst drop in value during its first year. My company owns my cars. We are able to straight-line depreciate those cars or write off the mileage. If you drive inexpensive cars in your business and put high mileage on them, take the mileage deduction. If you, like me, drive expensive cars but do not put many miles on them, take the straight-line depreciation. Both tax deductions are available to you without having a stupid car payment. If you don't own a business and didn't understand everything I just said about tax write-offs, etc., don't worry. Just know that, as a wise business owner, you don't want to fleece a car. Myth: you can get a good deal on a new car at 0% interest. Truth: a new car loses 60% of its value in the first 4 years. That isn't 0%. We have discussed the new car purchase in its various forms for the last several pages. No, you can't afford a new car unless you are a millionaire and can, therefore, afford to lose thousands of dollars, all in the name of the neat new car smell. A good used car that is less than 3 years old is as reliable or more reliable than a new car. A new $28,000 car will lose about $17,000 of value in the first 4 years you own it. That is almost $100 per week in lost value. To understand what I'm talking about, open your window on your way to work once a week and throw out a $100 bill. The average millionaire drives a 2-year-old car with no payments. He or she simply bought it. The average millionaire is unwilling to take the loss that a new car dishes out. That is how they became millionaires. I am not saying you will never drive a brand new car, but until you have so much money you can lose big bucks and not notice, you can't afford the luxury. The car dealer will tell you that you are buying someone else's problems. Then why do they sell used cars? Wouldn't that be morally wrong? The truth is that most slightly used cars have gotten all the kinks worked out of them and were not traded because they were bad cars. Since almost 80% of the new cars this year will be fleeced, more than likely you are buying a car that came off a lease. My last 2 car purchases were 1- and 2-year lease term INS with low miles. If you understand what I am saying about this huge loss in value, you now realize that 0% interest isn't really no cost. While the money to borrow isn't technically costing you, you are losing so much in value that you have still been taken. 0%, however, is used quite often by guys, seldom gals, to rationalize that need for some new wheels. So even though the interest rate is attractive, pass it up because the whole transaction still means throwing $100 bills out the window each week. Some people want to buy a new car for the warranty. If you lose $17,000 of value over 4 years, on average you have paid too much for a warranty. You could have completely rebuilt the car twice for $17,000. Also, keep in mind that most manufacturers' warranties will still cover you when buying a slightly used car. Of course, when you begin your total money makeover, you may have an old beater, but the goal is to avoid the temptation of the 0% interest myth and get into quality used cars. Still want to buy a new car? Sure, they look great, smell great, and drive great, but the month after month and year after year payments definitely don't feel great. Myth: you should get a credit card to build your credit. Truth: you won't use credit with your Total Money Makeover, except maybe for a mortgage, and you don't need a credit card for that. The best myth is the build your credit myth. Bankers, car dealers, and unknowledgeable mortgage lenders have told America for years to build your credit. This myth means we have to get debt so we can get more debt because debt is how we get stuff. Those of us who have had a total money makeover have found that cash buys stuff better than debt. But if I was selling debt, as the banker is, I also would tell you to get debt to get more debt. This is, however, a myth. Yes, you will need to build your credit by borrowing and repaying debt in a timely fashion if you want to live a life of credit cards, student loans, and car payments. Not me. The one question we must answer is, how do I get a home mortgage? Later, I will introduce you to the 100% down plan, or if you must, how to settle for a 15-year fixed-rate mortgage. But if you want that 15-year fixed rate with a payment that is no more than 25% of your take-home pay, so I won't yell about it, don't you need credit? No. You can get a mortgage if you have lived right. You will need to find a mortgage company that does actual underwriting. That means they are professional enough to process the details of your life instead of using only a FICO score, lending for dummies. You can get a mortgage if you have lived right. Let me define lived right. You can qualify for a conventional 15-year fixed-rate loan if you have paid your landlord early or on time for 2 years. You have been in the same career field for 2 years. You have a good down payment, which is more than nothing down. You have no other credit, good or bad. You are not trying to take too big a loan. A payment that totals 25% of take-home pay is conservative and will help you qualify. The FICO score is an I love debt score. According to the FICO website, your FICO score is determined by 35% debt payment history, 30% debt levels, 15% length of debt, 10% new debt, 10% type of debt. So if you quit borrowing money, you will lose your FICO score. It is not a score that says you are winning with money or that you have $1 million. It mathematically says you love debt. Please don't brag about your FICO score. That makes you look like you love playing kissy face with some bank. Dumb, dumb, dumb. So can you get a mortgage without a FICO score? Many mortgage companies have gotten so lazy that FICO is the only lending they do. Others simply don't know how to write a loan without a score. But as of this writing, you can still get a mortgage with a 0 score. You don't want to have a low score, it is best to have a high one or none at all. My personal score, by the way, is 0, because I haven't borrowed any money in decades. Myth: you need a credit card to rent a car, check into a hotel, or buy online. Truth: a debit card will do all that. The Visa debit card or other check cards that are connected to your checking account give you the ability to do virtually anything a credit card will do. I carry a debit card on my personal account and one on my business and do not have one credit card. Of course, you must have money before you can buy something with a debit card, but paying for things with money you have now is part of your total money makeover. Some rental car places don't take debit cards, but most do. Even though most will take the debit card, you need to check with the specific rental location in advance. I buy things online and stay in hotels using my debit card all the time. In fact, I travel all over the nation several times a year speaking and doing appearances, and my debit card allows me access to the best things life has to offer with no debt. Remember, there is one thing the debit card won't do: get you into debt. Myth: the debit card has more risk than a credit card. Truth: nope. Some of you were concerned when I mentioned buying things online and reserving hotels with a debit card. The perception is that it's riskier to conduct that kind of business with a debit card. Supposed financial experts have spread this myth to the point that it is virtually urban legend. The fact is, Visa's regulations require the card-issuing bank to afford the debit card the exact same protections in cases of theft or fraud. If you have any doubt, read the liability information on Visa's own website. I contacted Visa directly and they sent this statement: Visa's zero liability policy covers all Visa credit and debit card transactions processed over the Visa network. Visa extends the same protections and benefits to its debit cards as it does to credit cards, including the ability for credit card issuers to resolve merchant disputes on the cardholder's behalf if goods were defective or weren't received, YOU were overcharged, or for other reasons. But remember, in order to get the full protection, be sure to run your card as a credit transaction, not using your PIN number. That's what I do. Myth: if you pay off your credit card every month, you get the free use of someone else's money. Truth: CardTrack says that 60% of people don't pay off their credit cards every month. As I said, when you play with snakes, you get bitten. I have heard all the bait put out there to lure the unsuspecting into the pit. A free hat, airline miles, brownie points back, free use of someone else's money, a discount at the register, the list goes on to get you to sign up for a credit card. Have you ever asked why they work so hard to get you involved? The answer is that you lose and they win. When YOU play with snakes, YOU get bitten. You won't wear the hat, and according to MSNBC.com, 90% of the airline miles are never redeemed. Next time you are in the store that gave you a discount for signing up for a card, you will have forgotten your cash, you'll use the card, and the cycle begins. Maybe you think, I pay mine off, so I'm using their money. I'm winning. Wrong again. A study of credit card use at McDonald's found that people spent 47% more when using credit instead of cash. It hurts when you spend cash, therefore you spend less. The big question is, what do millionaires do? They don't get rich with free hats, brownie points, air miles, and the use of someone else's money. What do broke people do? They use credit cards. An American Bankruptcy Institute study of bankruptcy filers reveals that 69% of filers say credit card debt caused the bankruptcy. Broke people use credit cards, rich people don't. I rest my case. Myth: make sure your teenager gets a credit card so he or she will learn to be responsible with money. Truth: getting a credit card for your teenager is an excellent way to teach him or her to be financially irresponsible. That's why teens are now the #1 target of credit card companies. The past several pages have been devoted to the evils of credit cards, so I'm not going to repeat myself in the case of teenagers. I'll only add that throwing your teen into a pool of sharks is a sure way to guarantee a lifetime of heartache for them and for you. I will also tell you that over 88% of graduating college seniors have credit card debt before they even have a job. The credit card marketers have done such a thorough job that a credit card is seen as a rite of passage into adulthood. American teens view themselves as adults if they have a credit card, a cell phone, and a driver's license. Sadly, none of these accomplishments are in any way associated with real adulthood. You are not teaching your 16-year-old child to spend responsibly when you give him a credit card. You are not teaching your 16-year-old child to spend responsibly when you give him a credit card any more than you are teaching gun responsibility by letting him sleep with a loaded automatic weapon with the safety off. In both cases, you as a parent are being stupid. People with common sense don't give 16-year-olds beer to teach them how to hold their liquor. By giving a teenager a credit card, the parent, the one with supposed credibility, introduces a financially harmful substance and endorses its use, which is dumb but unfortunately very normal in today's families. Parents must instead teach the teenager to just say no. Anyone visiting a college campus in recent years has been shocked at the aggressive and senseless marketing of credit cards to people who don't have jobs. The results can be devastating. 2 college students in Oklahoma gave up on their credit card debt and committed suicide with the bills lying on the bed beside them. Vince called my radio show with a problem that has become a trend. Vince signed up for multiple cards during his sophomore year at college to get the free campus t-shirt. He wasn't going to use the cards unless there was an emergency, but there was an emergency every week, and soon he was $15,000 in debt. He couldn't make the payments, so he quit school to get a job. The problem was, without his degree, his earnings were minimal. Worse than that, he also had $27,000 in student loans. Student loans aren't payable while you are in school, but when you leave school by graduating or quitting, the payments begin. Vince was one scared 21-year-old with $42,000 in debt, but making only $15,000 per year. What's scary is that Vince is normal. The American Bankruptcy Institute reveals that 19% of the people who filed for bankruptcy were college students. That means 1 in 5 bankruptcy filings were by very young people who started their lives as financial failures. Do you still think it is wise to give a teen a card? I hope not. The reason why lenders market so aggressively to teens is brand loyalty. The lenders' studies have found that we consumers are very loyal to the first bank that certifies our adulthood by issuing us plastic. When I am doing an appearance and cutting up credit cards, the emotional attachment many people have to the first card they got in college is amazing. They clutch it like it is an old friend. Brand loyalty is real. Several thousand schools across America are using our high school curriculum called Foundations in Personal Finance. The results have been staggering. Teens latch onto the Total Money Makeover before they need one. A recent graduate of the program, 15-year-old Chelsea, said, "I think this class has totally changed my life. Whenever I see someone using a credit card, I think, whoa. How could they do that to their life? I always thought you had to have credit card payments, house payments, and car payments. Now, I realize you don't have to." Very cool, Chelsea. Kid branding. You have to start teaching kids early because kid branding is now commonplace. When my son was 11 years old, I looked at the back of a box of Raisin Bran and read Visa, the official card of Whoville, from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I was not the target of this ad, my kid was. Lenders are teaching kids earlier and earlier their message of reliance on plastic. A few years back, Mattel put out Cool Shopping Barbie, which was sponsored by MasterCard. Of course, this cool babe had her own MasterCard. When she scanned her card, the cash register said, "Credit approved." There was so much consumer backlash that Mattel pulled the product. A few years ago, Barbie came out with the Barbie cash register, and apparently this lady does a lot of shopping. The register comes with its own American Express card. Why are these companies selling to our small children? Kid branding intends to influence card choices later in life. This is immoral. Again, we decided to combat kid branding with our own antidote. Financial Peace Jr. is a collection of aids to help parents teach their children, ages 3 to 12, about money. Of course, you can teach the principles without the kit, but, either way, they need to learn them. In my home, we used the same techniques to teach our kids 4 things to do with money. We wanted to create teachable moments so that the kid branding would be counteracted by common sense. We teach our kids to work, not like being at some boot camp, but that doing chores equals money. Our kids are on commission, not allowance. Work and get paid, don't work and don't get paid. It's just like the real world. Our children put their newly earned money in envelopes labeled save, spend, and give. When a child learns to work, save, spend, and give under a mature parent's direction, the child can avoid the messages that say a credit card equals prosperity. Myth: debt consolidation saves interest, and you have one smaller payment. Truth: debt consolidation is dangerous because you treat only the symptom. Debt consolidation, it's nothing more than a con because you think you've done something about the debt problem. The debt is still there, as are the habits that caused it, you just moved it. You can't borrow your way out of debt. You can't get out of a hole by digging out the bottom. Larry Burkett said debt is not the problem, it is the symptom. I feel debt is the symptom of overspending and undersaving. A friend of mine works for a debt consolidation firm whose internal statistics estimate that 78% of the time, after someone consolidates his credit card debt, the debt grows back. Why? He still doesn't have a game plan to either pay cash or not buy at all, and hasn't saved for unexpected events, which will also become debt. Debt consolidation seems appealing because there is a lower interest rate on some of the debt and a lower payment. In almost every case we review, though, we find that the lower payment exists not because the rate is actually lower but because the term is extended. If you stay in debt longer, you get a lower payment. If you stay in debt longer, you pay the lender more, which is why they are in the business of debt consolidation. The answer is not the interest rate, The answer is a total money makeover. Myth: borrowing more than my home's value is wise because I'll restructure my debt. Truth: you are stuck in the house, which is really dumb. On today's radio show, I took a call from a desperate man facing bankruptcy. He had borrowed $42,000 on a second mortgage, a home equity loan. Dan's existing balance on his first mortgage was $110,000, making his total new mortgage debt $152,000. Dan's home was worth $125,000, so he owed $27,000 more on his home than it was worth. He lost his job 2 months ago and luckily has just found a job in another state, but he can't sell his home. He had the same job for 16 years and thought he had security, but now, just a few months later, he is in the soup. My suggestion to Dan was that he call the second mortgage rip-off lender and get an acknowledgement of the truth, that there really isn't any collateral for the loan. They wouldn't foreclose in 100 years, but they will sue him when the first mortgage company forecloses. So, after asking the second lender to release the lien for whatever proceeds above the first mortgage come from a sale, Dan will sign a note and make payments on the rest. Dan will have payments for years to come on a second mortgage for a home he no longer owns, but like most folks, his second mortgage was to pay off, move, debt he already had on credit cards, medical bills, and other life issues. Today, with a job in another state, Dan would rather have all his old debt back and his home where he could sell it easily. Myth: if no one used debt, our economy would collapse. Truth: nope, it would prosper. The occasional economics teacher feels the need to pose this ridiculous scenario. My dream is to get as many Americans as possible out of debt with a total money makeover. Unfortunately, I could sell 10 million books, and there would still be 7 billion credit card offers per year, so there is no danger of my working myself out of a job. The best weight loss program in the world can never ensure there will be no fat Americans. After all, there are too many McDonald's. What would people do if they didn't have any payments? However, let's pretend for the fun of it. What if every single American stopped using debt of any kind in 1 year? The economy would collapse. What if every single American stopped using debt of any kind over the next 50 years, a gradual total money makeover? The economy would prosper, although banks and other lenders would suffer. Do I see tears anywhere? What would people do if they didn't have any payments? They would save and they would spend, not support banks. Spending by debt-free people would support and prosper the economy. The economy would be much more stable without the tidal waves caused by consumer confidence or the lack thereof. Consumer confidence is that thing economists use to measure how much you will overspend due to you being giddy about how great the economy is, never taking into consideration that you are going deeply into debt. If the consumer were out of debt and living within his means, the confidence he would have would be well-founded. Saving and investing would cause wealth to be built at an unprecedented level, which would create more stability and spending. Giving would increase, and many social problems would be privatized, thus, the government could get out of the welfare business. Then taxes could come down, and we would have even more wealth. As that great philosopher Austin Powers said, capitalism, yeah, baby. Capitalism is cool. Those who are worried about polarization, the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots, need not look to government to solve the problem, just call for a national total money makeover. Debt is not a tool. Are you beginning to understand that debt is not a tool? This myth and all its little sub-myths have been spread far and wide. Always keep in mind the idea that if you tell a lie often enough, loud enough, and long enough, the myth becomes accepted as a fact. Repetition, volume, and longevity will twist and turn a myth, a lie, into a commonly accepted way of doing things. No more. Debt is not a tool, it is a method to make banks wealthy, not you. The borrower truly is slave to the lender. Debt is not a tool, it is a method to make banks wealthy, not you. Your largest wealth-building asset is your income. When you tie up your income, you lose. When you invest your income, you become wealthy and can do anything you want. How much could you give every month, save every month, and spend every month if you had no payments? Your income is your greatest wealth-building tool, not debt. Your total money makeover begins with a permanently changed view of the debt myths. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone who's ready to transform their approach to personal finance. Stay tuned for more empowering content from Mindful Audio Library.